I did not cut the neckline for the front because I want to use the measurements with which I used to cut the back neckline to calculate the front. You would understand what I mean in a bit. The neckline I'm making is more like a shirt neckline. It's very high. It's not going to have collars, but it's as high as a collar neckline. In one of my shirt books, I have two shirt books, one for the male and the other one for the female. In the book, I have a table for calculating the neckline. If you get the book, you will see the table in it. So for our measurement, I'll be using 3 inches as the neck width. You don't just use any kind of neck width for anybody. For our measurement, I'll be using 3 inches for our neck width according to the table that I have in my book, the female shirt book, because she's female. There's another one for male, and the table too is for male. And on the table, I have a neck circumference and neck width table, and if the person is using 15 inches to 17 inches, our neck width is going to be 3 inches. Our neck circumference is 16 inches, so she falls within the range of 15 to 17 inches. So I'll be using 3 inches as our neck width. Now measure from the center back 3 inches, and our neck height, I'll use 1 inch for her. Since it's a high neck, I'll use 1 inch. Then connect with a curve. Before I do that, I'll first stand the line. I like to do this first, and this is what I'll use to draw the neckline curve. So this is the neckline curve for the back. Now what I want to do is to cut this out. So I'll cut the pattern. I'm cutting from here because that's where the zipper allowance starts from, so I have to cut from there. I'll need to extend this line too because I'll cut from there. So always remember to finish up your lines so that you will start cutting from there, and what you are cutting will be straight once you are following the straight line. So I'll be starting to cut from the zipper line, and this is the shoulder line, and I'll cut my armhole line. So I'm cutting the back armhole 1/4 of an inch in, then the side seam. There's no seam allowance on this pattern, no seam allowance at all, because I'll still do some dart manipulation on it. And also there's the waistline, and I'm done with the back. So what I'll do now is to measure the neckline. I'll be measuring from the zipper line. I'm not measuring this with it. In fact, I'll fold it. Remember I said our neck circumference is 15 inches. I'm dividing it by 2 because I need 1/2 of it for the back and 1/2 of it for the front. So I would add ease to the neckline to make it comfortable enough for the person to wear it. So if our neck circumference is 15 inches, 15 plus 1, that's 16 inches. 16 divided by 2, that's 8 inches. So I'll measure what I have on the back, like so. This is about 3/4 of an inch. You know, we are having 2 back pieces. So I have 3/4 of an inch on one side of the back. 3/4 of an inch times 2, that will be 6.5 inches. 3.25 times 2, that's 6.5. Now I have 6.5 out of 16 inches. 16 minus 6.5, that's 9.5. So I need 9.5 for the front bodice. So remember, this is just one side of the front. This is the center front. So we are cutting one side on pattern for now. So that means I'll divide that 9.5 into 2 to get my measurement here. But first thing first, our neck width should always be the same. Our neck width for the front and for the back must always be the same. So I use 3 inches for the back. I'll be using 3 inches as neck width for the front, so that our neck width will start from the same place. Let me come again with this calculation. Now our neck circumference is 15 inches. I added 1 inch for his, that's 16 inches. Then I used 3 inches as my neck width here. Then I used 1 inch as the neck height. Now when I curved it and I measured it, I had 3/4 of an inch on the back neckline. Remember, we are cutting 2 pieces for the back. So 3/4 of an inch times 2, that will be my total back neck circumference when I cut after stitching both backs together on the garment. Remember, we are still going to work on the fabric. So because my neck width is, for one side of the back is 3/4 of an inch, I would multiply it by 2. So my neck width when I measure this place is 3/4 of an inch times 2 will now be 6.5 inches. So my back neck circumference is 6.5 inches. So for the front, I would measure the neck width, the same neck width I used on the back, that's 3 inches. I have measured it on the front because the neck circumference we are using is 16 inches. Now I would now subtract 6.5 inches, that is the total neck circumference, from 16 inches. That will be 16 minus 6.5, and that's equal to 9.5 inches. So what I'm looking for on the front is 9.5 inches. But because we are cutting just one side of the front, I'll divide that 9.5 by 2. That will give me 4.75 of an inch. That's 4.75. So what I need for one side of the front is 4.75 of an inch. So that's what I'll be looking out to cut out here. If you really want to be accurate, so I'm looking for something like this. So this is my 4.75 of an inch. Remember, this is the shape I'm going for, so it might not really be accurate, but just try it first and see if it works. Okay, this is about 2.75 of an inch. I'll use my curve to blend it. I'll try this point first. So if it works, fine. If it doesn't, I'll redraw it once I measure it and I get the exact measurement that I want. All right, so I'm looking for 4.75 of an inch. Now if I measure this, it's not up to 4.75 of an inch. This is just 4.25 of an inch. So I would redraw it because I've not gotten the exact measurement that I desire. I'll redraw it. Hopefully I'll get it this time. All right, so let's measure again. We are going for 4.75 of an inch. All right, so finally I got it. This is the measurement here, 4.75 of an inch. This is it. So that's how to measure the neckline to the accurate measurement you want. Now once I've done this, now if you want to know what I measured to get that, so that next time you won't need to be measuring over and over again, I took about 3/4 of an inch for the neck width and for the neck height, for the neck length or neck height, and I took 3 inches for the neck width, so I can cut my neckline easily like this, knowing that when I cut it, I would have the exact shape that I want when I finish cutting on the garment. Now if you now calculate both the front and the back neckline together like this, we should have the exact measurements we want. Now we are going for 16 inches. This is half of the front, half of the back and half of the front. So we are going to need 8 inches for the total neckline. So we are starting from one neckline to the other neckline. We'll take our measurement from one neckline to the other, and we should have 8 inches. I have a flexible ruler, but it's not here with me, so I'll make do with this. Exactly 8 inches. I have exactly 8 inches here when I measured both front and the back neckline to be sure I have the accurate measurement. I have exactly 8 inches from here to here, from this neckline here to here. Remember, we are going to be adding seam allowances, so we are not stitching exactly this. This is just a block. Once I've checked it and I'm sure that my 8 inches is complete. Remember, the neck circumference is 15 inches. I added 1 inch to 15 inches to make it 16 inches. That's the reason why I'm using 8 inches as half of the neckline. Do you understand the reason why I said I'm using the back to cut the front? because once I cut the back, I'm not going to alter the back. The back will determine the remaining measurement I will need to make up for the neck circumference. So once I've done that, I'll just cut out my neck line on the pattern. And I'm done. All right, so this will be my basic bodice and the front, and this will be the back. So the next thing I'll do is to check the shoulder seam must always be equal. I have a little extra here. I'll just trim it off. All right, so I have the same shoulder seam length on both the front and the back, and basically that's what I'm going to be checking for the bodice.